We're going to do best and worst so far as we take a quick peek at the Kings season through 15 games. Jason, this is interesting because what you have down here is you have a total of 6 categories. Okay. 4 of which are specifics: best win, worst loss, best surprise, biggest disappointment. I assume you have those 4: win, surprise, loss, disappointment. You already have those in your head?
Roughly, yeah.
I predict we're going to match on 3 of 4.
Okay.
And honestly, it's the wins and the losses that are worrying me. I'll start with best win. For me, there are some candidates, certainly, and I would accept a couple of different answers. I'm going to go back to that win in Miami. On the road in Miami, needing that win, coming off a bad loss on the road trip, getting the Atlanta win. There's certainly more options, but when I look at the strength of both teams, when I look at that's a place they historically play bad in, I'm going to give the best win of the year so far in Miami by a hair.
Okay. I actually went to the game in Phoenix, road win in Phoenix in overtime. They did a good job of getting it there. If I remember right. Yeah. Keegan had the tip shot. There was that weird play where they fouled Booker before the inbound and made one forced overtime, and they won there in Phoenix. So at the time, Phoenix had 1 loss. So I'm going to go with the road win at Phoenix.
Okay, that was the one I thought we might have different. Let's see if we can match on these other 3 here. This is the other one I think we might have different. I think we might get it right, though. Worst loss, there are certainly some heartbreaking losses, whether it's Atlanta or in San Antonio. Not heartbreaking, but just a bit of a the San Antonio hurt, but I'm watching San Antonio, like what they did last night. I think as the season goes on, much like Houston last year when they lost in Houston, went, what the hell? And then Houston ended up being an up-and-comer. I'm going to give it at Toronto. The amount of players Toronto was missing, the fact that they were going into Atlanta and Miami, you needed to have that win. Turned out they got the Atlanta and Miami win, which was great, but that Toronto win sticks to me. That's a game I think they win 9 out of 10 times.
You know what? I don't know why I didn't have that one there in my head. I probably should have. I was wrestling between the Spurs game. I just think they played so poorly. But I don't like home losses, so yeah. I'm actually the Clipper game. It was historically the worst 3-point shooting day they've ever had in 40 seasons as the Kings. And they had some chances to get in that game. That one I just didn't like the way they played in that game.
Okay. All right. So we are 0-2.
This is like the wedding game where they ask the couples which one is the better dancer, and you guys are like always putting the wrong answer.
Yeah. Can I say that's a bit I've wanted to do for a long time, Jason? Somebody's got to have the home game. Maybe I can order it, but I think it would actually be funny for you and I to play the newlywed game.
Yes.
Obviously, there's certain questions that wouldn't fit, but or would they? All right. The best surprise this season, I'm going to go with the free throw shooting. They were not good last year, to say the least. And they've been at or near the top when it comes to free throw percentage all year long. So there's a couple of things that stick out. But for me, I think the fact that they're so good shooting free throws, that's probably going to be number 1.
Okay, that's probably where I agree with you. That's where I would have landed on that one too. I wanted to do a partial shout out though to De'Aaron getting 60. Yeah. I mean, to go above your career high by 16 points when your career high is 44. I mean, the number of people in the history of the league that hit 60 is not that many. It's never happened in this franchise. And I thought De'Aaron could get to 50. 60 is special territory, so that would be my other one I want to mention.
Okay. All right. Jason didn't have faith in De'Aaron Fox. All right. Worst or biggest disappointment. Look, the fact that they don't have the depth, that's something. It's a disappointment, but we knew that going in. I'll say honestly, I think the obvious answer for me is just their 3-point shooting. God, just has been abysmal with the exception of a handful of games. I did not expect that. There were a lot of things I was worried about. 3-point shooting wasn't one of them. And I did not expect them to be in the bottom third of the league. But here we are through 15.
Yeah, the two I wrote down, shooting was the first one. So we're agreed there. And I wrote down the bench. So we kind of had, you mentioned it. So we had the same thought process there. And some of the bench would all be better if the shooting was better. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Also, they're missing their best bench guy right now, Malik Monk. But, yeah, shooting and bench would be my two there.
We talked about it a little bit yesterday. So want to bring it back up. The Kings provided a medical update on all three injured players, Monk, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis. All three really almost identical as to what the prognosis is, that they were out with an injury in two cases, obviously the back, and then you had Malik, reevaluated, cleared for contact, and listed as day-to-day. So, Jason, I don't think it's out of the ballpark to say that we could have 1, 2, or even all three back. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying having 1, 2, or 3 back is certainly on the table for Friday.
Wouldn't that be great? I mean, obviously the two I think is happening. Like you said, the Malik, I want to see this team again with what they've done here lately, like this great version of Fox, incorporating those other guys back. And if that bench can, start to produce, that would be maybe the silver lining here of having those guys out. Coach Brown has had to play more bench guys. I don't know if he'll stick with that, but maybe some of them have earned a little bit of trust.
From the 510 on the text line, 916-339-1140. Hey, Dave, you claim you're pretty fair and can be critical of the team. Can we talk about how the Kings are at the bottom of three-pointers made in Dalton Connect, a player Monty passed on in favor of Carter and didn't trade Herter this offseason? It's a three-point league. We're loaded up on mid-range shooters. So glad Monty took Devin Carter, as we're at the bottom of the league. I would just say, sir or ma'am, we spent almost an entire segment on that about a half an hour ago.
Yeah, it's all timing, right? Dalton Connect had a great game last game, right? 9 points as a starter, or 9 threes.
Yeah.
You know who just hit 9 threes? Keon Ellis. Which is funny because that also goes to this makes me laugh because we do it. We're Kings fans. We think everything happens against the Kings. They didn't draft Dalton Connect. How do you lose to this game when player X goes off? They never do that. If the Kings had won and you and I were Atlanta, Dave, and whatever, I guess I'd just be Jason. We'd go, how do you lose a game to Keon Ellis?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, do people in Atlanta know who Keon Ellis was?
No.
And so if he goes off and they win that game, you're like, you didn't lose to De'Aaron Fox. They didn't have Sabonis. They didn't have DeRozan. You lose to a guy named Keon Ellis. That's exactly – it does happen. It happens. It just – people can't seem to fathom that it happens against other teams. It always seems to happen against the Kings. That's not true.
I would say this as we go to break, Jason. I think every single point you're bringing up is a level-headed, smart, and hopefully accurate point. I'm going to couch it here. No, it's here's where I'm couching it in my head. That is a to be determined. We cannot make assumptions based on a 37-point game. We haven't even seen Carter play yet. We don't know what trades are in the works, but I do think this. I think right now, it looks like a bad pick. Right now, I wish we had Dalton Connect for a ton of reasons. I will save that judgment until the end of the year when we can go back and look at how Monty. I don't like making judgments based on incompletes, but I will say this. Devin Carter being injured. Did they know he was injured? The lack of depth, the lack of three-point shooting. It doesn't look good right now. It absolutely doesn't look good right now, but there is time to change that notion, and I think it's fair to allow for that.
Yeah, but if we're doing that, why wouldn't you want Jared McCain? Like, he was picked after Carter. Like, if we're doing this exercise, McCain's been better than Connect. Connect had a great game last night. He did. I don't want to dismiss that. Yeah. But everybody's jumping to him because he's a Laker and he hit 9 threes last night. McCain's played better than him.
I think it's fair. I think that's an incredibly fair point. Why are we yelling about Dalton? Honestly, probably I'll just speak for me. The reason why the Dalton Connect thing hurts, just this is my point of view, a little bit extra, is that's who I wanted the Kings to pick. That's I didn't say that about Jared McCain, so you could say I was the Dalton Connect thing. That's who I wanted them to pick, so it's gonna be a little bit of a confirmation bias for me. I get it, but then again, I thought Davion Mitchell was a great pick and was going to be the next Diet Chris Paul, and this Alperen Şengün guy can't play defense. We all screw up. It's just we tend to vocalize our rights a lot more than our wrongs. We'll take Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, just for context, to the last 6 games, by the way, for Connect, or excuse me, for McCain: 18, 27, 23, 34 with 10 assists, 29, and 20. That's his last 6.
Well, what do we need that for? He's also really good on TikTok and social media.
Yes, and a local guy.
Sixers are 1-5 in those games.
They are.
So, yeah, well, we're 0-2 in games that players have career highs in points this year too. So we'll take a break. I hate everything. I'm in a bad mood. When we come back, get in a better mood. How about 4-down territory? Let's finish up our prediction.